just look at how much Florida collects our general revenue from sales tax. Like, it is wild. And to actually quote the executive director of the Florida Department of Revenue, and FYI, DOR is like our IRS. They're like the state version of the IRS. So DOR, our executive director, Jim Zangali, basically said we have one leg of the three-legged stool. And the three-legged stool that he's referring to is the previous slide, what we just talked about as the three different types of bases of tax. So he's making the point that we only really tax sales. We don't really, we don't have an income tax in Florida, so that's off the table. And then, we don't really have a strong capture of wealth. So sales tax, as you can see from this chart, really is a major source of general revenue in Florida. And I know some folks have argued, well, that must be from tourism. Actually, tourism only accounts for like less than 10% of the sales tax revenue. So the bulk of this is just everyday Floridians buying products. And so, with that said, this is the corporate income tax. And so you can just see the contrast between what corporations pay compared to sales tax that consumers pay. It's like a giant blue Pac-Man just eating all of it up. And we'll dive deeper into this. So this is a really great visual that comes from Pew Charitable Trusts. And it just highlights how Florida is the second most sales tax dependent state in the country after Texas. So, again, it just kind of demonstrates how heavy we are when it comes to sales tax compared to all other types of taxes. And again, sales tax is known to be regressive. So I think it is important to understand, Florida's emphasis on it. Again, just another breakdown of what Florida's 5 top sources of revenue is, including trust funds. So Florida does benefit from federal aid. Anyone who, attacks the federal government for having, not having a balanced budget or having a deficit and so forth, again, I'm all for, debate. I'm all for criticism of the federal government. But I do want to be clear that Florida benefits from the federal budget. We would not survive as a state if it wasn't for federal funds. And you can see that breakdown right here. And then sales tax, 38.6 billion. Lottery tickets, it's also a huge source of revenue as well. We'll have time to talk about this tonight, but I do want to emphasize that lottery tickets, there is some serious reporting happening, examining lottery tickets, because it tends to be areas of low wealth where the most prevalent and I should say most trafficked lottery kiosks are. And so despite the fact that majority of people who engage in lottery are communities of color and people of low wealth, that's not who benefits from Bright Futures. In fact, the percentage of those who receive Bright Futures who identify as Black is incredibly small compared to the number of Black folks that buy lottery tickets. So there are some really important equity questions here about how is a lottery ticket helping to change economic experiences for those who participate the most. And so again, that's a conversation for another night, but just want to put a note to that. And then, real estate transfer tax. This is, the sale of property and so forth. The document stamp tax, has also been associated with the Affordable Housing Trust Funds as a reminder. And then the corporate income tax, 3.8 billion. So you can just see the drastic difference between what the state of Florida earns from sales tax, a tax on consumers, compared to the corporate income tax. And yeah, also, this is the combined property taxes for the last fiscal year. So $39.8 billion in property taxes from local governments. And that includes county, school districts, cities, special districts. So that's separate from the state budget. But remember, the state, because the state only has one of those 3 stools, that's because local governments are the ones that are taxing wealth over the state of Florida.